So in this video I'm going to start a new book called Skeleton Creek. So yeah, let's begin. There was a moment not long ago when I thought, this is it, I'm dead. I think about that night all the time, and I feel the same fear I felt then. It happened 2 weeks ago, but 14 days and nights of remembering have left me more afraid and uncertain than ever. Which I guess means it isn't over yet. Something tells me it may never truly be over. Last night was the first time I slept in my own room since everything happened. I'd gotten in the habit of waking in the hospital to the sound of the nurse's shuffling feet, and drying chalk dust smell of her skin, and the soft shaking of my shoulder. The doctor will visit you in a moment. He'll want you awake. Can you sit up for me, Ryan? There was no nurse or doctor or chalky smell this morning. Only the early train crawling through the town to wake me at 5:30. But in my waking mind, it wasn't a train, I heard. It was something more menacing, trying to sneak past in the early dawn, glancing down the dead-end street. Hunting. I was scared, and then I was relieved, because my overreactive imagination had settled back into its natural resting state of fear and paranoia. In other words, I was back home in Skeleton Creek. Usually when the morning train wakes me up, I go straight to my desk and start writing before the rest of the town starts to stir. But this morning, after shaking the idea that something was stalking me, I had a sudden urge to leap from my bed and jump on board the train. It was a feeling I didn't expect and I hadn't the slightest chance of acting on. But still, I wondered where the feeling had come from. Now I've rested, this journal on the TV tray, with its legs torn off, propped myself up in bed on a couple of pillows, and I've started doing the one thing I can still do and always have made me feel better. I've begun to write about that night and all the things that come after. I need to take breaks. It still hurts to write. Physically, mentally, emotionally. It seems like every part of me is broken in one way or another. But I have to start doing this again. 2 weeks in the hospital without a journal left me starving for words. I have kept a lot of journals, but this one is especially important for 2 reasons. Reason number 1, I'm not writing this for myself. I'm putting these words down for someone else to find, which is something I never do. Reason number 2, I have a strong feeling that this will be the last journal I ever write. My name, in case someone finds this and cares to know who wrote it, is Ryan. I'm almost old enough to drive. Although the would require access to a car, which I lack. I'm told that I am tall for my age, but need to gain weight or there's no hope of making varsity cut next year. I have great hope that I will remain thin. I can imagine what this morning would have been like before the accident. I would be getting ready for the hour-long bus ride to school. I would have so much to say to Sarah. An hour next to her was always time well spent. We had so much in common, which kept us from going completely crazy in the town populated by just under 700 people. I'm really going to miss those conversations with Sarah. I wonder if I'll get lonely. The truth is, I don't even know if I'm allowed to mention her name. But I can't stop. I'm a writer. This is what I do. My teachers, my parents, even Sarah, they all say I write too much, that I'm obsessive about it. But then, in the same breath, they can't help but mention that I'm gifted. Like when Miss Garvey told me I understand the words and their usage in the same way a prodigy on the piano understands the notes and sounds. But I have a much simpler answer, and I'm pretty sure I'm more right than my teacher is. I've written a lot every day, every year for many years in a row. Practice makes perfect. I think my favorite writers are those who admit, while they are still alive, that they couldn't live without writing. John Steinbeck, Ernest Hemingway, Robert Frost, Guys who put writing up in their same category as air and water. Write or die trying. That kind of thinking agrees with me. Because here I am, write or die trying. If I turn the pages in all the journals I've written, basically find two things: scary stories of my own creation and recordings of strange occurrences in Skeleton Creek. I can't say for certain why this is so, other than to fall back on the old adage that a writer writes what he knows. And I have known fear all my life. I don't think I'm a coward. I wouldn't be in the position I am now if I was a coward. But I am sort of the person who overanalyzes, worries, frets. When I hear noises and scratching under the bed, either real or imagined, I stare at the ceiling for hours and wonder what it might be that is trying to crawl its way out. I picture it with its fangs, long, bony fingers, and bulging red eyes. For a person who worries like I do and has a vivid imagination to match, Skeleton Creek is the wrong sort of place to endure childhood. I know my writing has changed in the past years. The two kinds of writing that made up scary stories and documenting the events in Skeleton Creek have slowly become one over the years. And I don't have to make up stories any longer, because I am more than certain than ever that the very town I live in is haunted. This is the truth, and the truth, I've learned, can kill you. I'm tired now, so tired. I have to put this down, even if I can't stop thinking about it. I have to be careful to keep this hidden. I have to make sure nobody sees me writing in it. They're curious enough as it is. They're watching me enough as it is. I'm a captive, really. I'm imprisoned in my own room. I have no idea how much they know. I don't even know how much I know. I have so many questions and no way to answer them. There is something about having been gone for 2 weeks in a row that helps me see Skeleton Creek with fresh eyes. I have a new idea of what someone from the outside might think of if they drove into my isolated hometown. It sits alone in the bottom of the mountains. I like to act on these thoughts and write them down, as if they are occurring. It is a curious habit that I can't seem to break. Maybe things are safer when I think of them as fiction. If I imagine myself as a person arriving in Skeleton Creek for the first time, it goes something like this. The sun has barely risen when the car door opens and the man stands at the curb looking out into the forest beyond the edge of the town. There is a gray fog that hangs thick and sticky in the trees, unwilling to leave, hiding something diabolical in the woods. He gets back in the car, locks the doors, glancing down the side streets. Through dusty windows, he wonders what has brought this little town down to its knees. The place is not dead. It is not even dying for certain. Instead, the driver thinks to himself, this place has been forgotten. And he senses something else. There are secrets buried here that are best left alone. It is then that the car turns sharply and leaves in the direction from which it came. The driver, confident that the growing light of day will not shake the unforeseen dread he feels about the town at the bottom of the mountain. The driver would not know exactly what it is that had scared him off, but I know. Sarah knows too. We know there is something wrong with this place. More important, we know we're going to get close to whatever it is. Someone's coming. When did our search begin? If you could get to my old journals, I might be able to figure out the exact date. But they're hidden, and there's no way for me to get them with my present state, without help. And the only person who could help me, Sarah, isn't here anymore. I guess our searching began with the question she asked me last summer. Why Skeleton Creek? You mean the name? Yes, the name. Why call it a town Skeleton Creek? Nobody wants to visit a place with a name like that. It's bad for tourism. Maybe the people who named it didn't want any visitors. Don't you think it's weird no one wants to talk about it? It's like they're hiding something. You're just looking for a reason to go snooping around with your camera. There's something to it. A name like that has to come from somewhere. I remember thinking there was a story hidden within what she said, and that I wanted to be the one to write the story. I had visions for everyone in Skeleton Creek applauding my efforts to uncover the past. The fantasy of creating something important appealed to me. We began our quest at the local library, at the gloomy 12 by 12 foot room at Elm and Main, open on Monday and Wednesdays. It was also open on New Year's Day, Christmas Day, Easter Sunday, because according to Gladys Morgan, our prehistoric and very unhappy town librarian, nobody comes in on those days, and the library is deathly quiet, as the library should be. Gladys Morgan is not a friendly woman. She stares at each person she encounters in precisely the same way, as if everyone in town has just kicked her cat across the room. She has skin like clumped newspapers. Her lower lip has lost its spring and hangs heavily over her chin. There's an alarming overbite. I remember the day when I walked into the library. The little bell was tingling at our entry. The room smelled musty, and I wasn't certain if it came from the old books or from the woman who guarded them. Sarah peered Gladdy with the question as I ran my fingers across the spine of the most boring books I've ever seen. Till last, Miss Morgan put her hands up and spoke. This town wasn't called Skeleton Creek until 1959. She reached beneath her desk, which had sat decaying in the same spot for hundreds of years, and pulled out a wooden milk crate. Inside were newspapers torn and yellow. You're not the first to ask about the past, so I'll advise you to look like I did the rest. She glanced past the dark curtains to the street outside and shoved the box across the desk, leaving a streak where the dust had been lifted. She had a particular superstitious look on her face. Read them if you want, but let it go after that. Beyond these, you'll only stir up trouble. Gladdy took a white cloth from the pocket and removed her wire-rimmed glasses, wiping them with wrinkled hands, casting shadows across the peeling wallpaper behind her. I'll make a note you've checked those out. I'll have them back on Monday, or it's $1 a day. The town librarian clammed up after that as if someone had been eavesdropping, and she said as much as she was allowed to. But Gladdy Morgan has been given us a beginning, a thread to grab a hold of. It would lead us to trouble of a kind we hadn't anticipated. I stopped there for a while because of all that has made me think of Sarah. I wonder if she were here whether she'd be telling what happened the same way. Not writing it down, not my thing, she always says, but I wonder if she would remember things differently. Look back, I see warning signs. Sarah looks back, she sees invitations. I miss her. I blame her. I'm scared for her. I'm scared of her. Not a lot, but some. It was wrong of me to write, I blame her. It's not like she tricked me into anything. I went along willingly. I was the one who put my life on the line, even if I didn't realize I was doing it. I guess what I'm saying is that none of this would have happened if Sarah hadn't been around. Now, I do miss her. And I do blame her. And I'm not sure her story would have been different from mine. But where was I? Oh yeah! We began reading through the stacks of newspapers from 1947 to 1958. There had been monthly papers for the 1,200 residents. The papers had an uninspiring name, the Linkford Biweekly, but was told us what the town had once been called, Linkford. For it had a nice ring to it, or so I thought at the time. The title of the newspaper became more and more interesting in 1959, where it was renamed the Skeleton Creek Irregular. This was an appropriate name for what could only find a handful of papers dated between 1959 and 1975, when the publisher fell to Reno, Nevada, and took the printing press with him. Linkford sat alone on a long, empty road at the bottom of a forested mountain in the western state of Oregon. It surprised us to discover that the official from the New York Gold and Silver Company had suggested the town be changed to Skeleton Creek. Actually, we were fairly dumbstruck that anyone from New York would have taken an interest in our town at all. Why in the world would a big city mining company want to change the name of our town? I remember asking Sarah. It's that monstrous machine in the woods, she answered. The dredge. I bet that has something to do with it. They probably owned it. The dredge? Already? We're heading towards the dredge? I bet Sarah was planning things in her mind even way back then, not knowing the consequences, just thinking about the mystery. We pieced together the small bits of information we could gather from those who would talk, hardly anyone, and the newspapers we'd been given, less than 30 in all, non-complete editions. We had gone as far as creepy old Grady's Morgan said we should go, and yet we kept pulling on threads we'd taken hold of. Of course, I was less enthusiastic than Sarah at first, knowing that if our parents discovered what we were doing, they would demand that we stop prying into other people's business. Privacy has long been a religion in our town, but Sarah can be persuasive, especially when she finds something she wants to record on film. She could be consumed by filming in the same way I am by writing. Our creative obsessions seem to draw us together like magnets, and I have a hard time pulling away when she determines to drag me along. And so we kept digging. Of course, I know where you're all going with this. I just have to get it down on paper one last time. Remember, I have tried to remember all the details. They could still be important. I feel like midnight's the only 8:30. How did this happen to me? Stop, Ryan. Go back. Remember, even if you know it's not going to feel, even if you don't have any of the answers. There is a small announcement on the 4 of the newspapers that alluded to something called the crossbones. They were cryptic ads in nature containing a series of symbols and brief text that seemed to have no meaning. One such message read the following: the floor and the 7th floor past, the 9 on the door, number 2 crossbones. Who in the right mind could decipher such nonsense? Certainly not all of the advertisements came between the years of 1959 and 1963. It all appeared in the Skeleton Creek Irregular. Then in 1964, they creased along as if they had never existed at all. But the same symbol could still be found in various places. One of the symbols, 2 bones tangled in barbed wire, could be seen above the door of the local bar, on a signpost at the very edge of the town, and again carved into the very old tree along the pathway into the woods. It made us wonder if the members of the Crossbones were still meeting. Who had been part of the society? What was its function? Were they still active members? And if so, who were they? Our trial dead end with the advertisements. We searched relentlessly online for clues of our town's past. New York Gold and Silver was bankrupt over an environmental lawsuit that seemed to vanish into thin air after 1985, but didn't keep us from sneaking down the dark path into the woods to examine what was left behind. Do I wish we had never gone down that path? Yes. No. I don't know. It's too complicated. Or is it? None of it would happen if we'd stay away from the dredge. The dredge is a critical part of the town's dreary past. It sits alone and unvisited in the deepest part of the dark woods. The dredge, we discovered, was a terrible machine. Its purpose was to find gold, and its method was grotesque. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, the dredge salt in the muddy lake of our town, making it dig deeper into the earth and hauled gigantic buckets of stone and depressed into itself. Nothing escapes the relentless appetite. Everything went inside the dredge. Trees and boulders and dirt clouds. The sides of my head were shifted and shaken with all the near-deafening racket. And then it all spit out behind the piles of rubble 10 feet in height. A tale of ruin, miles and miles in length. Also teeny bits of gold could be shifted out. The trench that was left behind as the dredge marched forward formed the 22-mile strimble of zigzag widely along the edge of the town and up into the lower part of the mountains. The gusted earth filed the water, and the banks were steward and unwashed limbs that looked like they were broken bones. The new waterway torn from the earth and stone was called Skeleton Creek by the man in the suit from New York. Maybe it had been a joke. Maybe not. Either way, the name stuck. Soon after, the town took the name as well. It would seem that the New York gold and silver held enough sway over the Linkford to change the town name to whatever it wanted. The greatest discovery, or the worst, depending on how you look at it, that Sarah and I got involved immediately. Death of the workmen on the dredge. There was only one mention of the incident in the newspaper, and nothing anywhere else. Old Joe Bush they called him, so I can only conclude that he was not a young man. Old Joe Bush had let his pant leg get caught in the gears, and the machinery of the dredge had pulled him through, crushing his leg bone into gravel. Then the dredge spit him out into the grimy waters. His leg was demolished, and under the deafening sound in the dark night, no one heard him scream. Old Joe Bush never emerged from the black pond below. Okay, I think everyone is asleep now. It is safe to get going. Late last night, on my arrival home from the hospital, I was reunited with my computer. This may seem like a strange thing to write, but already walloping powers of the computer is magnified by even more people like me in the small isolated town. It is the link to something not boring, not dull, not dreary. It has always been especially true in my case because Sarah is constantly making videos, posting them, and asking me to take notice. One simple click, that's all it would take for your life to change. Sometimes for the better, sometimes much worse. But I don't think about that. No, just a click. There's a certain video she had made 15 days ago, the day before the accident. This video is like the road sign that says, "You've gone too far, turn back." And I'm afraid to look at it again because I know that after I watch it, I'm going to be even more of a bewildering sense that my life has been broken into two parts. Everything that came before the video and everything that would come after. As much as I don't want to, I'm going to stop writing now. There is a safely at the writing late into the night, but I can't put off watching it again. I have to see once more. Know that things have changed for the worse. It might help me. It might not. But I have to do it. I have to. I'm afraid it's so simple. But just go to Sarah's name online. sarahfincher.com. Enter the password House of Fisher. Then click return. One click. Do it, Ryan. Do it.